Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of the Dogland Podcast. Not really a podcast today here on YouTube, but me and Jack have missed quite a few topics over the last few weeks with the Browns, and we wanted to get on here, cover those in video form only. But of course, can't do it without my man Jack. How we doing today?
Doing good, man. Like you said, it's been a few weeks. Missed a lot when it comes to the Browns. A lot has changed in the world the last few weeks. Social media has changed a lot. Obviously, we're in a transition of power in our government. But man, it's good to hear your voice again. I know it's been a few weeks. Hope everything's good on your end. Everything's good on my end as well.
Yeah, things are pretty good, and you could tell that we haven't been doing this for a few weeks because this is our second take at this. I forgot to hit the record button when we got started, so just like the Browns, I was on a bye week, I guess, or we were on multiple week bye weeks, which would be great for the NFL at some point to have two bye weeks for all the teams, and we'll talk about that probably at some point. But Jack, as you mentioned, a lot of things have happened, and I guess we can kind of go in chronological order and start with the trade that was made. And the Browns traded Za'Darius Smith before the deadline to the Detroit Lions for a fifth and sixth round pick, a fifth round pick in 2025, a sixth round pick in 2026. They sent Detroit Za'Darius as well as a 2026 seventh round pick. Um, obviously we were not expecting to be sellers at all this season, but unfortunately, with how the season has gone, that's what the Browns were at the deadline, and were able to get some value from Za'Darius as well as the Amari Cooper trade as well about a month ago too. So made a couple trades with guys, with contracts coming up, and we're able to uh, recoup some draft assets over the next couple seasons.
Yeah, it was tough that we were in that position. I think it was I think it was Jake Burns that morning when the trade went down. He was just like, hate being in this spot, having to be a seller, uh, having our football team be sellers. But yeah, we traded a fifth for Za'Darius Smith, I think it was, in some kind of pick swap with the Vikings, and we recouped his value. Hate to see him go just because he was solid for us in 2 seasons. This year he was off to a great start, 5 sacks, 27 pressures, was being impactful as a pass rusher, but we kind of figured that, the Browns would try to get off his contract. We re-signed him to a 2-year deal. Recoup some draft picks, some draft capital, just because the looming cap charges that are coming, especially with Deshaun Watson, that it just made sense for the Browns to try to get off that and gain some draft capital. So Za'Darius gets a chance to go to the Detroit Lions, trying to fill somewhat of the void that is missing since the Aiden Hutchinson jersey or injury, not jersey. I don't know what I was thinking there, but it's gonna miss Za'Darius. He was a good veteran presence, very impactful. Uh, but Anthony, we're in the spot we're in, being 2-7, coming off the bye week, and you had to make that kind of move at the trade deadline, just because it made sense that teams were calling for him, and it just made all the sense in the world to go ahead and pull the trigger on that trade.
And now you have a chance to see, some of the other guys on that defensive line a little bit more, at that defensive end position. Whether you want, Okoronkwo out there, Isaiah McGuire as well. Seeing what these guys can do, over the course of the rest of the season. We'll be curious to see if Okoronkwo's here after this year because of the contract that he signed in free agency. The D line is going to continue to be a work in progress because you have a lot of still older talent on there. You obviously still have Miles, but your pieces going forward, Miles Garrett, obviously, Okoronkwo, possibly McGuire, Mike Hall Jr. But you look at guys like Downwood Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Mo Hurst, those guys could potentially be rotated out after this season as well. So they have a lot of answers still to find on the defensive line.
Yeah, you would think. Okoronkwo steps in first. He's going to be the starter, but I do think we're going to see more Isaiah McGuire, who, when he's got to play this year, Anthony, he's been impactful. He's been disruptive. 83 pass rushing snaps according to Pro Football Focus. He's got 12 pressures. He's got 1 sack. So he's been effective in a small sample size. Okoronkwo is not playing well. You heard Kevin Stefanski say or Jim Schwartz say on Thursday, when he spoke with the media, that you'll see Sam Kamara, who's on the practice squad. So you would imagine he's one of our elevations this week, getting a role in the at the edge position. He can play both edge and defensive tackle. Also mentioned Mike Hall, who, once he's gotten back on the field, he's been disruptive in the very small sample size. So I think it's going to be a constant rotation there. Opposite Myles Garrett, who's starting to get into a groove, had 3 sacks against the Chargers. So it's going to be Myles and the other guys. I mean, you're going to hopefully you get to see Isaiah McGuire more. Okoronkwo struggled this year. Hopefully with more increased playing time, he can be more disruptive because it's a big void losing Za'Darius. So it's a chance for guys to step up, and it's also a time for the front office to evaluate, much like you said, who's going to be around for the long term. McGuire's only in his second year. Michael Hall's obviously a rookie. So this is evaluation time for a lot of the roster. And now you get to see who has a chance to be part of this team moving into 2025 and into the future.
And they still are probably going to have to find a long-term solution for the opposite of Myles Garrett at defensive end. It could be McGuire. We'll see what he's able to do the rest of the season, but that's still something that they've tried to accomplish over the last few years, whether it was with Jadeveon Clowney, Za'Darius Smith, so Okoronkwo as well. So we'll see if they're able to find a long-term answer, or if McGuire is the answer. We'll start to see that, I think, over the second half of the season. Next thing we want to talk about, and I think this caused the biggest stir this week, is offensive tackle Jedrick Wills. He had a quote. Let's see what it was. I think it was earlier this week, and he said about
Monday.
He revealed to reporters this benching was preceded by a conscious decision to not play against the Ravens on October 27th. It was quoted as saying it was a business decision. The full quote that he said was, I mean, I decided myself that I made a business decision not to play after the Bengals game, going into the Ravens game because I was injured. And then the next week is when I received the news about being sat for DeJuan Jones. Jones started at left tackle this past game. Obviously, caused a big stir when you use the term business decision. There's such a big connotation, and Stefanski alluded to that, and I'll read that quote here in a second, but there's a big connotation to that in the sports world, what's in terms of business decisions. And Stefanski said today, I talked to Jed. It was a poor choice of words. I know the connotation of business decision. That's not how he meant it. He did not feel like he was near 100% to help us, but a poor choice of words, and he understands that. Now, there's been a lot said about Jed Wills, over the past couple seasons. He's been injured last year, some of this year as well, coming back from that knee injury. So, it seems like he's not going to be here going forward. And that seems what might be best for business, to borrow a line from our favorite, wrestling promotion. But, we'll see what they decide to do at left tackle. And certainly DeJuan's spot for now, for the rest of the season, to see how it goes. But your thoughts on Jed Wills and his quote? And I know the initial reaction was bad, but what Stefanski said today kind of eased up on it.
Yeah, I think, well, like when people saw the headline, and I think probably the majority of us saw it on Twitter, it was kind of like, what did he say? Like when you hear the term business decision, it's normally not in good connotation, much like what Stefanski had said and everything. But once they saw the clip that I think it was he said it during Monday morning, early Monday afternoon. Once I saw the clip Monday evening, I kind of had cooled off, but this just kind of wraps up the whole thing about Jed Wills in a nutshell during his 5 years here. Like he's just not he doesn't make smart decisions. And I think like the talent's always been there with Jed. I think we've said that numerous times, but he just can't put it all together. And I think that right there, when he said it, it was, I think he meant to say it one way and it came out a completely other way. But it, this is just has to tell you that this whole experience with Jed Wills, it has to come to an end after this year. I know there's financial complications with that because of them restructuring his contract and everything, but there's no way you can bring him back. I think we've run the course with him. I think the fact that even though the grades don't show it, the last couple games with DeWand at left tackle has made it seem like things are better with him at left tackle over Jed Wills. So I think you can kind of ramp that up. I think Jed's gone after this year. Um, I'm sure people in the organization have been frustrated with his development as an NFL offensive lineman. Just has not been a good experience. I think Bill Callahan tried his hardest and got the most out of him that he could. I think, you know, the offensive coaching staff now is trying to squeeze anything out of him that they could, but it's all gone. And him just saying what he said, there's rumors about his desire to be an NFL player, that he's more focused on other things outside of football, and saying what he said. Like people will see that quote, and I wouldn't be surprised, Anthony, if teams are like, "Yeah, we're not going to mess. We're not even going to try to resurrect his career and offer him a contract in free agency because they're going to take that quote." Now, obviously, if you look at the whole quote in full context, you would see that he didn't mean it like, "Oh, I took a business decision and I decided to sit out." He did it because he was hurt. And I think that's understandable. You're doing what's best for the team in that scenario. But people will look at that and say, he made a business decision. Well, we'll just make a business decision and not offer him a contract in free agency. So I think he kind of hurt himself in the long term with that. You know, maybe he can make up for it, like sitting down and actually talking to teams. But it looks bad on the surface. But if you dig down deep, it really wasn't as bad as people made it out to be.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see him get any sort of long term deal from any team. I think he's going to have to go a string of a couple years of 1 year deals with incentives based in there to make sure that he plays well. So before a team, I think will give him a long term shot at being a franchise type left tackle. You know, he could be somebody that could be in reserve going forward. But again, 1 year deals is probably where he's going to be at. How do we feel about Dewan starting the rest of the season for now at the left tackle spot?
I think it's a good move. I think like and you can look at it and you can think it's a lot of different things, like the offensive line getting healthy, the change of quarterback and the style of quarterback. But I thought the offensive line has looked better the last couple of weeks. I would hope it gets even better coming off the bye week when you got some time to rest and recover on some potential nagging injuries that any of the guys have felt. But I think like Jed, like I said, the grades haven't really shown it. He is giving up some pressures, but I feel like the offensive line has been better the last couple weeks. The stats back it up. But we'll see. I think Dewan's got the potential to be a starting caliber offensive tackle. The desire, the motivation, that's all there with him as well as it was with Jed. We heard some rumors the last few weeks that he was at or over 400 pounds at one point this season, and part of that might have been some frustration because because he got benched once Jack Conklin came back and they had trotted out Jed Wills. But I think he's been okay the last couple weeks since he got inserted at left tackle. So we shall see how it keeps going. And if Anthony, if he shows any signs that he can be the long-term left tackle, that changes that could change some of the directions that the Browns go in the draft come April because, you know, outside of them drafting a quarterback with their first round pick, I think offensive tackle could be in play. If Jed's your long term offensive tackle or left tackle, that might change the direction of how the Browns will operate in April's NFL draft.
I know at some point we'll talk a little bit more draft, especially with where the Browns' record is. But I can still see, even if he is the answer, I can still see them taking a tackle to be at right tackle going forward.
Hmm.
I could see center as well. I don't know if they would draft a guard in the first round, but I could definitely see that within those first 3 rounds as well. Them getting another guard, whether that's Teller's replacement or whether that's Batonio's replacement down the road. So. I know they did draft Zinter to probably be one of those replacements, and I think he's capable of doing that. He's had a rough go this year so far, but um, rookie offensive lineman still. So there's that
Yes.
thing you have to factor in as well. So um, the last thing we want to talk about was the injury to JOK, because I don't think we talked about it after that game at all. But it was a very tough scene to be there in person when he went down against the Baltimore Ravens when trying to tackle Derrick Henry. And that's just something that you hate to see. It's one of the leaders of the defense. Everybody is loves JOK. He's done a great job. Linebacker deservedly got an extension as well. So he's definitely a long term piece here. And for him to go down, definitely not an easy thing. And we want to talk about it because Jordan Hicks had a quote about him today. It's kind of lengthy, so bear with me here for a second. Uh, it's it was tough because we play this game because we love it. Hicks said on Wednesday, we sacrifice our bodies for it, and we understand the risks that are involved in it. But at the end of the day, you see something like that, and it's real life. I look at my life again. This is Jordan Hicks, and I've got 3 kids and a wife at home, and it's like, what if I were to come home like that? Um, he went on continuing saying, and so he's got family that he loves, people that care about him more than just what he can do on the field. And so puts things in perspective, and you hope and pray that he's going to make a miraculous recovery. And so I don't know. It's just hard. It's tough. But you rally around him and you rally around each other. I'm curious to know, how bad the injury is. I know they put him on IR with the neck injury, but when you kind of read that quote, it makes you think that things are pretty serious for JOK.
Yeah, definitely. And like I've been kind of like trying to get back in the groove of the Browns, you know, seeing what the Browns players are saying and everything. And I totally missed it on Wednesday. And then at work on Thursday, me and my coworker were talking, and he was like, "Do you see that quote about Jordan Hicks from Jordan Hicks on JOK?" And I was like, "No." So I looked it up, and I was like, "Miraculous recovery." And it's like, man, like how bad is the neck injury? Because we know he got out of the hospital like the next day, but we don't know what the injury was. We know the Browns are pretty tight-lipped about injuries and everything, and like Stefanski's always kind of like wording around recovery times, and he says one thing and it usually means another thing. Like day to day means he's probably gonna be out for a week, or week to week means it's got several week injury. Really didn't say much about JOK. And Mary Kay Cabot, who we used that quote from her article, she said Owusu Cormo is eligible to return December 8th in Pittsburgh, but all the Browns care about right now is his health and well-being. And so it's like, which I think that's wrong, because I'm pretty sure he's eligible after after the Pittsburgh game next week in Cleveland. So I think she just got the Pittsburgh games mixed up. But now you hear miraculous recovery, Anthony. You kind of wonder, is this a potential career-ending injury for JOK? Like, did he break a bone in his neck? Is there some kind of nerve damage that really could uh hamper his NFL career? Like, you start thinking about like the potential that his career is over when he really is just starting to take off as an NFL player. And you mentioned he got the contract extension. He had a Pro Bowl year last year, was one of the best linebackers of the league, was off to a great start again this year. And now it's like it could all be over just because of one simple tackle trying to bring down Derrick Henry, which is a hard thing to do in of itself with just one person. But you start to think, and Jordan Hicks said about putting it all in perspective. It's a man's life that changed forever. His NFL career could be in jeopardy, and you just think about how short those careers are. And he just signed that extension which was probably life-changing money for him and his family, and now it could all be done. So you just hope that JOK is going to be okay. First of all, as a human. Second of all, us as Browns fans, we hope we can see number 6 back out there, being one of the leaders on defense, and he was definitely stepping into that role as well.
I think the length is right because he was placed on IR before the Chargers game. So it's Chargers, Saints, Steelers, Broncos, and then this next Steelers game. Because it's a 4 game minimum, not a 4 week. If there's a bye week in there, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a 4 week. So yeah, she could very well be right. And if she is, sorry, Mary Kay, for trying to correct you.
We'll have to find some clarity on that just to be 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure it's a 4 game thing. But anyway, yeah, I mean, obviously not having him around is a big loss. You hope that he'll be able to. You'll hope that he'll be able to come back this season. But with the Browns' record where it's at right now, I'm sure they're going to err on the side of caution with things.
Absolutely. And it is 4 games. I looked it up while you were talking. So it is a minimum of 4 games. So Mary Kay was right. So.
Sorry, I muted there because I'm having a coughing attack for whatever reason. But you know, we wanted to come on here, do this video, just kind of go over a couple of these topics. We're gonna do a full game preview of the Browns and the Saints. That is this Sunday. So check out our next video here on YouTube, or check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll be able to see that as well. But until then, talk to y'all next time.